Yo, what is up? What is up, YouTube boxing family? It is I, K-Rod here. I'm back with another great video for you guys today. Um, yeah, let's get right into it, man. I have like a lot to talk about, and yeah, I want to give my whole take on this, but let's talk about my whole final fight prediction and my whole like fight build up or pre-fight build up thoughts on Clarissa Shields versus Savannah Marshall, Deontay Wilder versus Robert Helenius, and Kayla Plant and Anthony Durrell and Michaela Mayer versus Alicia Baumgardner. And we'll do Devin Haney and Kambosos if you guys want that as well. So yeah, let's get right into it. We have like a lot of great matchups, but I'll get the women out the way because the women should come first before the man. But yeah, man, we got plenty of great matchups here. I'm gonna give my whole fight prediction thoughts of the co-main event and main event with Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall. And we'll talk about, I guess, Michaela Mayer and Alicia Baumgardner. So that'll be interesting. Definitely looking forward to the matchups and the rest of the cards that I'll bring up. Yeah, let's get right into it. For Michaela Mayer versus Alicia Baumgardner, I've been, very highly confident to choosing Alicia Baumgardner to defeat Michaela Mayer. People may say that Michaela Mayer, she's a great fighter and she has all these great tools in her toolbox where she beat like the high level veteran level opposition, but I don't really see it to be like that because when you look at top ranked fighters, they've always been propped to fight opposition that don't give them at the highest level of clarity to show that they are one of the best fighters out there. And Top Rank has done a very careful job with matchmaking Michaela Mayer's career. She hasn't really fought anybody at any level to say that she's really like, the number one lady in the division. But when you look at her resume, she's 18-0 with only, or actually no, she's 17-0 with 5 KOs. She doesn't have that much power. She really doesn't possess any punching power. Her last knockout, well, it wasn't even like a knockout. It was a bullshit corner stoppage in which, I guess if you want to say that her corner deserved to throw it in, I mean, yeah, like, you can give that, but, referee and corner stoppages are not knockouts. Just to put that, very clear, onto people's minds. But that was by the hands of Miss, who was the lady's name? Alejandra Soledad Zamora. So ever since then, she hasn't been knocking anybody out. But like Michaela doesn't really have that much power in her shots that really makes a fight very competitive. And I think what the thing is that when you look at the level of how much she's gained from her fights or how much skill that she has gained from her fights, she's been beating up on B level to like borderline C level opposition. Out of all the punchers that she's faced in her career, the only punchers that I could ever see on this list that could ever qualify her taking some decent shots, in which I don't think it's even necessary to even look at because it's like she didn't really do much in those fights where she actually got any better from the fights, but that was to the hands of Helen Joseph and Maiva Hamadouche, in which she actually bruised her up extremely, well in that fight. So, Michaela, she doesn't have that much defense inside her arsenal, and I never really I never really thought so high of her to actually have that much skill set in her arsenal to be how should I say, to be that type of lady, to be like, super duper high level. She hasn't really been stopping anybody. I would even say like all of her knockouts were just basically like referee stoppages. And Michaela, she doesn't really hit that hard to begin with anyway. She, like, the only time where she makes a danger with her power would just be that, if she's able to if she's able to if she's able to have you stand right in front of her where she throws an accumulation of punches to make herself successful to win. Of course, that's a fair argument, but when you look at the rest of this resume, these are women that don't have winning records against against other notable females in the division. So I just think, based off of what I'm seeing here, Michaela doesn't show any separation in her skill set as she moved up that ladder, because her only toughest fights that she's ever been in was honestly the Maiva Hamadouche fight and the Helen Joseph, and I probably say maybe the Erica Farias fight, in which she should have had a much easier time with her, but Erica Farias, past her prime, gave her problems, and that just shows that Michaela, she's not able to show at a high level that she fights old, washed up, women that aren't really that good to begin with. And I mean, there's really not that much competition at 130 that makes, Michaela that big of a threat. But here we are, fast forward to Alicia Baumgardner, in which, her resume is nothing, nothing different. But the thing is that, Alicia Baumgardner, she's been trying her hardest to make, better fights with, any available opponent throughout her resume. But on top of that, from the 2019 to 2021 time frame, for those of you that didn't know, she actually was injured during that time frame, if I'm not mistaken, leading up to the 2021 time frame where she came back and defeated Vanessa Bradford. But that was coming from the TKO or knockout victory against Cristina Del Valle Pacheco. That was back in December 14th of 2019. But then leading up to Vanessa, to have her little tune-up to Terry Harper and Edith Soledad Matisse. Those are pretty good, impressive victories. Obviously, Terry Harper is the biggest victory that stands out, and her only loss came to a split decision to Christina Lina Darto. So, I mean, the only thing that people can really say about Alicia is just that she hasn't been given, a lot of opportunities to get enough experience under her belt. But it's not like that she can't fight. It's not like that, Alicia Baumgardner is garbage. She's really not. She looks to be more of the more dangerous, fighter. She has a very male-driven professional fighting style. Her style really reminds me of almost like a Corey Spinks, but with a very Tony Harrison-ish type of style, because Tony Harrison, obviously trains with her, and his brother LJ. So she has a very rough, rugged style, but she's a true boxer puncher at best. And I think her power is definitely going to play a huge role in this fight. I just don't see Michaela really hurting Alicia, and knowing that Alicia, she may have a couple inches, off of her in height, but I don't think that really makes that much of a difference, because height and reach really doesn't matter unless you're able to be, successful to use it. But looking at this matchup, Michaela, she looks to be 5'9", and people say Alicia is 5'7" or 5'6", but honestly, she's probably just around, Michaela's height. And I don't really think, Michaela's really that tall to begin with. But just by looking at the physical, compounds between both, between both female fighters, I just don't see, Michaela's skill to really be, how should I say, to be that big of a threat. Some people may think that I'm just, dick riding, or I'm not, giving, Michaela enough credit, but she's really hasn't she really hasn't done anything spectacular in her career that makes me say, wow, you know what? I would definitely favor I would definitely favor Michaela over Alicia any day of the week. But looking deeper into Michaela's skill set and how much she's been protected throughout her entire career as a fighter, because that's how top ranked fighters are. It's like, I'm not going to give her, any credit, until she shows me something different, that that she is a very good fighter, and she does beat, Alicia Baumgardner to the point where she actually has credibility, in the division. But I would say until then, she would have to prove it, because I think what the biggest takeaway from it is that she's been carefully moved her entire career to the point where Top Rank will do anything necessary to keep a female fighter of that promotional banner protected. Otherwise, if Bob Arum really wanted to make better fights, to me, I think it would have made a lot better sense for Michaela to move forward to other divisions rather than staying at 130, because honestly, let's just say if Alicia was never focusing on 130 at all, and let's just say her career wasn't really continued due to medical reasons or whatever, I don't think anybody would have cared what happened at the female 130 pound division. And I think that this fight for women's boxing really makes the fight a lot bigger, because if Alicia Baumgardner didn't do all the trash talking and all the promotional gain to make this fight a lot better, then I think that what this fight would have done is that this fight, between Michaela and Alicia wouldn't have been so popular leading up to the build-up. But then on top of that, imagine what, Michaela versus Terry Harper would have been. That fight probably would have been, extremely boring to watch. But then on top of that, Terry Harper wouldn't bring that much sell into the fight where, there's actually any bearing to say that, okay, well, Terry Harper and Michaela is a good fight. But it's out of anybody's mindset as a dumb casual fan, what makes anyone think that they would want to watch that fight, in the UK, obviously, but still, imagine what the buildup would have been with that fight. But the buildup wouldn't do so good. Both ladies don't really have that much, trash talking to say, about one another. And I don't think Terry Harper and Michaela would have sold, the fight any better. So I just think, based off of what I'm seeing from the progression with Alicia Baumgardner and Michaela, you would have to give credit to Alicia Baumgardner for being very intelligent in making this fight, because if she didn't, then I think that this fight would have been a very boring promotion. And I think Michaela Mayer knows that this fight needed to have this type of promotion, because there was actual bad blood to be settled, within this fight. I'm not saying that's always necessary for every fight, but honestly, to really think about it, it's a very smart business move, if you're Alicia Baumgardner wanting to put your name out there, because, let's just say if she does lose, which I hope she doesn't, but I just think that, Alicia Baumgardner, if she were never to really talk the way she talks now, I think that, the reason why she is saying what she's saying now is because this is what's going to put her name under the pedestal of who she is. Obviously, people will say, oh, well, you can't say that in boxing, you have to be humble. Honestly, fuck all that shit. Being humble doesn't make you good at the sport. Being humble makes you basically think that you have to be basically held back, under every single fighter. And to me, I personally just don't think that the sport grows when you're being humble. And I think the sport is better when you do trash talk, because there's no friends in the game, as some people will, paint it out to be. But I truly believe in that sentiment. There's no friends in boxing, but on top of that, boxing is not a gentleman's sport. So for me, at least, when I used to wrestle back in high school, I was never friends with anybody, walking into that mat, because number one, you put your life on the line to, combatively challenge someone, in a competitive one-on-one duel. So to me, at least, I just don't see that being very harmonious to say that boxing needs to have a friendship mentality in it, because I don't see it to be that way. I see the sport, as a very as a very destructive sport. And when you compete in a sport where there's where there's blood, sweat, and tears being sacrificed into it, there's no such thing as being humble. The only thing that matters in any competitive blood sport matchup that involves you putting yourself in grave danger for the sake of bringing a entertainment to the fans, that's a gladiator mindset, or that's just like a warrior's mindset. Because similar to war, in a way, it, in a military sense, or in a militaristic sense, you have to have a killer mindset coming into being a soldier. So coming into boxing, that's very similar in that same regard, because you don't have, any options coming into the ring. And I mean, there's many different mindsets that you have to think about coming into your fights, because, your fight could be your last, but on top of that, you just don't know what happens. You don't know who has the mindset of utilizing any dirty tactics to try to hurt you, because whatever happens to you in that ring, that the fighter that did it to you will not feel sorry for you. They're going to say, oh, well, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, honestly, at the end of the day, to me, nothing is guaranteed when you walk into that ring. So you have to come in, with a very killer mindset in order for you to be successful. And I think that's just how, everything should be, especially in boxing, because you cannot tell me that boxing is, is a very friendly, competitive sport, because I don't think of it to be like that. I think of it to be a very, very destructive sport. People do die in the sport, sadly, but it's like, if you're not thinking well in this sport, then, honestly, you cannot, say that, this sport is making, fighters, lives, any better by punching somebody that they don't know in the face, to, to say that, the sport is just growing based off of fighters being humble, whatever that people want to, try to slice it up for. But either way, I don't believe it to be like that. Boxing will be a dangerous sport and a vigilant sport at best. But as far as this matchup goes between Baumgardner and Mayer, Alicia Baumgardner did a very good job in making this fight popular for what people want to see. And I think this is needed for women's boxing, because, imagine if Alicia, never continued her career after she suffered her massive, ACL injury back in 2019 that, that made her severely inactive during COVID and after COVID. But still, Alicia Baumgardner made this fight very popular by putting her name out there, by having actual, real, rivalrous bad blood with Mikaela Mayer. And I just think it just makes, all the best makings to make this fight very interesting. And I think Mikaela Mayer knows that, Alicia made this fight, popular by putting herself out there. Because if she didn't, then I think this fight, like, especially, if Alicia wasn't a champion of, like, at this point in time, and let's just say if it was like a Terry Harper or that, like, Asian lady Queen Mi Choi, I don't think, there would have been any popular buildup to, to any, trash talking or just selling, with the fight at all. And honestly, to a marketability standpoint, with the amount of marketing that Top Rank does for Michaela Mayer, I'll be the first one to say that Michaela Mayer does not sell. She does not put herself out there. She does not talk very outspoken. She basically has Bob Arum speak for her. And sadly, she does not really put herself out there as a woman to actually be assertive in what she believes in. Because if she did, she actually would have more fans if she did have that mindset like Clarissa Shields does now by talking the way she does now. Or how should I say, like, if Michaela had the mindset that Clarissa does now to promote her name, to be that woman to say that, dumb casual ass fans hate on her for doing, then I think Michaela's name would be a lot more popular and she would brand her name a lot better if she had that mindset. But knowing that she doesn't have that mindset, she's a very, very boring figure on the marketable stage or on the marketing stage. So therefore, the only way that, you would ever get her name going is when somebody comes out of the scene, like a Alicia Baumgartner, to speak out, very outspoken, but then on top of that, to be very assertive in in promoting the fight to build more pressure onto Michaela's career. So either way, in case in point, this fight overall was like a very, very good promotion. And Alicia Baumgartner, she did what she had to do to make this fight very, very sellable. So I just think that based off of what I'm seeing, I think Michaela Mayer had, she did a really poor job in promoting the fight. And Alicia did basically most of the heavy lifting to make this fight very notable. But as far as my final prediction goes for this fight, I think Alicia, she's going to either dog walk Michaela or she's going to outbox her to the point where Michaela, she's going to fight very frustrated, because I do believe, with all this mental pressure that she was built in to being, how should I say, basically everything that Michaela has been frustrated from Alicia's, how should I say, from Alicia's mind games, heading into this fight. I think Alicia will have more of the upper edge in actually getting into Michaela's head in the fight. And I mean, I very well could be wrong, because, some people that do trash talk in boxing take it a little bit too far in their confidence to fight, while being angry in the fight itself. So I don't think of that to be true. I think Alicia, she did a very good job promoting this fight to the point where Michaela's mindset is not really focused efficiently in this fight. And on top of that, this is a fight that Alicia wanted for quite a long time. And now that she put herself in political, position to make herself, that quote unquote, venomous rival to Michaela Mayer, really makes this fight, a lot more interesting. And no matter how much people want to say, it's just that, when you actually look at this fight, I think Alicia Baumgartner, she put this fight, very well into her mindset of what she's going to do in the fight. Because, remind you, when she fought Terry Harper, she fought a totally different style that Michaela probably thinks that Alicia is just going to go for the right hand to hurt her. But I don't see that to be true at all. I see Alicia really making Michaela miss a lot in this fight, and a lot of people don't give a lot of credit to Alicia's defense. I think her defense is completely underrated, and she's a very, very high level ring IQ level fighter. Um, the only time where we've ever seen Alicia make like adjustments in a fight, I would even say even in the Christina Lina Darto fight, she actually made a very good effort of making the fight her fight. But I think the biggest takeaway from it was that Christina, she was pressuring, Alicia a little bit, but Alicia, she was handling, the pressure very well. And it's not like to say that, Alicia, she can't handle pressure. It's just that, when she doesn't know how to make, the simple, adjustment of what Christina was doing in that fight, that was obviously like a major learning experience for her to get better in those situations. But, especially when we saw it from the Terry Harper fight itself, Alicia was doing a very good job keeping her hands very active to counterpunch Terry. I think that the biggest problem out of that fight was just that Alicia should have just used her she should have attacked her punches to the body more to hurt Terry in that fight a lot easier. But I think to set up the right hand was absolutely beautiful by Alicia. She did a very good job by making sure that Terry wasn't able to use her best weapons up against her. And people people may want to say that that the stoppage was was bullshit, but I don't think of that to be to be the case. I think Alicia did enough in that fight where basically Terry wasn't able to really respond well to the shot, because that was a shot that Alicia set up extremely well to be successful in the fight. But that's not to say that, oh well, just because she did it doesn't mean that she can't do it to Michaela. No, but the thing is that Michaela, she's never been in that situation where she has to be hit with a hard shot that she hasn't seen before. But on top of that, when you look at what she's been doing throughout the entirety of her career, she's been fighting women that usually stand right in front of her. I don't think there's ever been any boxer puncher in her entire career that made her think a lot in a fight. But on top of that, she's really never fought that many women, or she hasn't fought any woman at all that actually forced her to actually box. Because, that the biggest takeaway from it was just that Michaela, she was coming into her fights, expecting her opponents to be very stationary. So it's not like that her opponents are super duper good. It's just that when you look at the level of progression of what they've done in their careers, they haven't done anything spectacular. Michaela's opponents, especially the more notable wins, especially up against Maiva Hamadou, she's not that great of a puncher. She's just basically just like a come forward, European, fighting style, like a fighting style type of fighter. And same thing with Helen Joseph. She just comes forward a lot too. She doesn't really do too much, in her career to actually make any proper adjustments with her game, but she had multiple opportunities to knock out Michaela because Michaela was there to get hit every single time. But I think the problem with Helen was just that she didn't apply enough body work, in which I think Michaela, she's a sucker to get hit, with like a hard body shot. But on top of that, she's a sucker for the right hand too. She doesn't have that much head movement. She doesn't move her feet around as much as she should, especially at a high level. The biggest issue is just that Michaela, she's so heavily dormant on trying to stand right in front of you to go rock'em sock'em robots. But the biggest issue is that Michaela chooses not to box. She chooses to brawl with you. And I think that's what's going to end up getting her knocked out. Like she's like a raging bull, like, in a Chinese closet. Because I truly believe that's what Michaela's style is. All she does is come forward. She doesn't use her feet to position herself to fight tall. But on top of that, she's always there to get hit. She's not there to move her head. She's not there to use any proper defense or, any high level boxing ring IQ at best. Because whenever we've seen Michaela a little bit wobbled or a little bit buzzed, she doesn't really do well, under pressure, whenever she does get hurt. And whenever she does get hurt, she ends up fighting while she's hurt, which to me, I find that to be very stupid. I have no disrespect for Coach Al Mitchell, but I don't think Al Mitchell is a actual proper professional boxing coach. I think when you look at his fighters that he trains a very amateurish type of fighting style. And granted, Alicia, she's been boxing, if not just as long, or I probably say longer than Michaela, but Michaela's fighting style is not even good for the pros. Even if you bring that style to the male, division at 130, like imagine a female version of Shakur Stevenson going up against a female version style of Michaela Mayer's style. Converted that to the pros, that type of fighter would get knocked out any day of the week. But the reason why she hasn't faced any much of adversity in her career is that she hasn't been concerned about, her opposition opponents, punching power to the point where she has to worry about those shots, coming back to her. So she's been heavily reliant off of fighting women that don't punch enough that can actually hurt her. But the only women that actually did hurt her, throughout her entire career, would be Erica Farias, definitely Helen Joseph, and I would probably say Maiva Hamadouche. But after that was pretty much it. But as far as that goes, my final prediction on this is that I see Alicia either stopping her, with a good body shot or with a good flash knockout punch, or she will very well just end up cruising her to a decision. I don't think Alicia really cares about how the outcome goes, but she would love to get the knockout, in which I could very well see that, because she does pose a bigger threat with her punching power. People may not think so, but I do think so. She wasn't really doing much with Soledad Matisse, in which people would say, "Oh, well, you should have got her out of there." But it's like, you should understand, especially at a high level, not every fighter is going to be hit a lot to get stopped. But for a woman of her caliber, like Soledad Matisse, for those of you that don't know, I believe she's a half sister of Lucas Matisse. She's a very rough, rugged fighter. She hasn't really been stopped that much throughout her entire career, but Soledad Matisse, she's a very difficult fighter. I don't care what anyone says. Despite her age, she's still able to rumble with some really good fighters, and regardless of what she's going through, with her career, she's a very, very, difficult veteran level fighter to knock out. But just because that Alicia didn't stop her, that doesn't mean that she can't stop Michaela with a different style. But then on top of that, she's not going to be throwing those type of punches at Michaela. So I think, if anything, people are trying to downplay that, to say that Alicia doesn't have power, because she does have power. A lot of people don't want to give her credit for it, but she does have power, and her power looks to be more active than Michaela's power. That's not to say that, Michaela can't punch either, but on top of that, when you measure her punching power with Alicia's, punching power, Alicia's punching power is way more, deadlier compared to Michaela's punching power. Because Michaela, she has to throw punches and bunches to create volume punches to knock you out. But with Alicia Baumgartner, she has to land one good punch in order for her to be perfect in that one, 1 point, like, whatever duration of seconds of that fight. But it's not to say like she's like a Deontay Wilder, but she does, like, she does have, destructive power. And I think that's a very good, assessment to bring up because, despite that she wasn't able to knock out Soledad Matisse, but she was able to stop Terry Harper and other opponents in the past. That does not mean Alicia doesn't have good power. It's just that every style is different based off of how she fights. So, basically that the whole, mantra, goes back to square one. Styles make fights. But it's whoever style is able to implement on the other fighter style to be a victorious style matchup. So, i.e. styles make fights. But either way, that's pretty much it with my prediction on that one. Let's speed run with Claressa and Savannah Marshall. I guess one more thing with Alicia and Michaela. If Alicia does hurt Michaela more in this fight, then that pretty much proves like my point to show that Michaela doesn't have good punch resistance either. But as far as Michaela's pros and cons of what she's good at and what she's not good at, she's good at, applying proper pressure when she's able to have someone, stand right in front of her. But on top of that, she also has good dog per se, but it's not, that the best aggressive dog, mentality coming into her fights. But yeah, that's pretty much it with that. I'm basically gonna leave it like that. I don't want to beat like a dead horse and continue, acting like, as if I'm favoring, Alicia. But either way, like I do favor her, but I'm not going to just keep talking about it because it's gonna be boring. But yeah, let's finalize with Claressa and Savannah, and then we'll talk about Wilder, Helenius, and Caleb Plant and Darrell, and then we'll talk about Haney and Kambosos. Obviously, with Claressa and Savannah, I truly believe Savannah will either get stopped or she could very well just be defeated by a decision. I think that's what's going to end up happening. I think Savannah, she's just not that type of woman where people try to make her out to be this big, mega threat. And when you look at her progression in her career, she's been fed like weak veteran level opposition opponents where she doesn't have to work as hard to get these victories. But on top of that, when you look at the level of progression with Claressa, she's been moved extremely fast, similar to that with Vasil High-Tech Lomachenko. But when you look at the level of talent pool of the fighters that she's been in there with, Claressa has done more in her career than Savannah has done. But Savannah has basically, if not the same amount of fights, but with like the weakest amount of opposition in her fights. And I could very well, attest to that because when you look at the level of progression with Savannah and Claressa, Savannah has not done enough in her career to be the sole victor in having any belief or I'm sorry. Having any belief or faith to make any, dumb casual fan believe in her skills to say that she's going to beat up Claressa and she's going to dominate her. But on top of that, why hasn't Savannah challenged, women by the likes of Hannah Gabriels, other women such as, who is the other lady? Christina Hammer. She should have fought women like that leading up to Claressa because if she had the ability to fight them and defeat them, then that would have made a very good marketable case to say why Savannah can beat Claressa. But on top of that, the only thing that I'm concerned about is obviously the cheating because she's associated with the Furies and obviously Dan O'Canahan and all that crazy shit that has been going on with that whole, debacle. But I just hope that there's no cheating involved. because if there is cheating in this fight, I will be the very first person to call this out. And if and if Clarissa, is the first woman to come out to say that she got cheated and there's massive corruption behind this, then I will be the first person to say that, look, I want Savannah Marshall's, life to be prosecuted. I don't care what anybody has to say, just because that she does a, insidious crime, outside of the United States, in the UK is fine. That's not gonna that's not going to roll fine with me. I'm going to, aggressively call her out, and I'm going to call everybody out on this that basically gets exposed. But it's like, I don't want to see any corruption out of this fight. Like, honestly, but the thing is that if Savannah does knock out Clarissa and there's no cheating involved whatsoever, then I'll be perfectly fine to say, look, that's perfectly fine. If there's nothing, if there's nothing that makes me believe that this is like another Wilder Fury saga, I will be the first one to say, okay, look, I've basically looked over all the, reviewing pieces of evidence that could be out there to say that Clarissa did not get cheated. But on top of that, Clarissa hasn't said anything about it yet. That will make me think in full belief that Clarissa, she got defeated by the better fighter. But if I see any fishy shit going on that will make this fight, how should I say, that will make me think that, Clarissa got done dirty by Savannah and her team, obviously with Team Fury and all those crazy, pieces of shit, then I'm going to come back here and say, look, Savannah is a fucking cheater. She needs to be taken out and her life needs to be prosecuted. I don't care. I'm going to be very, very evil, about this. So regardless of what any weirdo from the UK wants to think about it, that's basically how things will go. But don't try to act like, things are not going to, be like that when people like myself and other people within, TWT or the LDBC related, channels that will come out to be very hypercritical, for this fight. But either way, I would heavily favor Clarissa Shields, defeating Savannah Marshall, because I don't see enough skill set in Savannah Marshall that would make me think that she's any better than Clarissa. But if she did, the same thing what Clarissa had done in her career to fight all the best names, in the division that she campaigned at middleweight, then it would make a lot better sense to have this fight, how should I say, to have this fight prioritize in such a manner to make me believe that, okay, Clarissa has the ability to beat Savannah, but Savannah looks to be a very sharp fighter. But she hasn't done anything like that in her career in the first place. But then on top of that, knowing how she's been stopping every single opponent, if not almost all of them in her career, she's never had this type of power, in the pros. She's never been that much of a power puncher in the amateurs, but magically, somewhere but surely, in the wonderland of weirdo world, she's able to have all this super crazy, amounts of power that makes her such a big threat. But I just don't see it to be like that, because she's never shown herself to be any big of a puncher in the amateurs. But here we are in the pros. Savannah's supposed to be the ultimate badass of taking women out, but it's when you look at her fights, these are women that don't have enough time to prepare, in which she's fought most of her opponents off of short notice. But on top of that, when you look at the level of weirdo-ness with the amount of, I guess, weird corruption behind the victories that she has, she never takes off her gloves after a fight. She always keeps her gloves on. But on top of that, you never really see her opponents get any better. It seems like that they don't look how should I say it? They don't look physically in good shape after after a fight, and once they head into their next fight, they don't look to be the same fighter, and that makes me wonder, what are they doing behind closed doors that would make me think that their opponents is actually coming into a fair fight. And I just think, based off of what I'm seeing right now in Savannah's progression as a fighter, she's been fighting she's been fighting pre-selected opposition that would make me think that she's not really testing herself, because she doesn't want to put herself in the same legacy mindset as Claressa did. But it's like, Claressa, she had to go through everything difficult in her career, and no one didn't want to give her any credit for it. But whenever Savannah, when she goes off of off of her title run, it's like she gets praised like she's like a white Jesus figure. So I just find that to be really weird, because it's like Savannah was never that good of a fighter to begin with. Because if she was a good fighter, she should have been able to dominate the same opponents that Claressa Shields has fought. So I'm just basically keeping it like a spade, I'm just keeping a spade. But if you guys know what I'm saying, that's why this fight really has a lot more questions behind it. Because if Claressa goes out of her way and she beats Savannah single-handedly, I won't be surprised of how that fight will go down. But it's just the fight itself, it's definitely a lot more, how should I say, the fight is more competitive when it's on an even playing field. But if it's not on an even, but if the fight is not on a even playing field, then I'm going to have some very serious words, serious words talked about it. But on top of that, Savannah's clarity as a fighter will definitely be viewed as a very, very unsuccessful career. So I don't want to see any cheating at all, because Savannah, she does not deserve to be the victor between her and Claressa, because Claressa will show to her come fight night that she was the better fighter. But if there's any shady business with the fight, looking to be corrupt within cheating, then I think there is a fair case to say that Savannah could have cheated in this fight. But that's pretty much the only thing that makes me worried about this matchup, because I don't want to see Claressa cheated, and I would never want to see Savannah cheated. But on top of that, she's keeping herself around people that are insidiously evil criminals that do cheat in life. So it's I don't find that to be a very good mindset to have, because it's if you have to cheat in order to be relevant, that just makes me think that you don't really have any confidence in yourself as a fighter to be very successful in your career. And regardless of what people want to say, but it's that's basically how that's basically how boxers are basically acting nowadays, where they are basically acting out of pure fear to not face the best opposition. But on top of that, when they have to cheat you in order to win, at the highest level, at a world championship stage, that makes me understand the game a lot better, to know that a lot of these fighters don't want to be great. They want to be very successful, and not being great at just being an absolute failure. So my final prediction on this is that I got Claressa either stopping Savannah late if this was a 3-minute fight. But knowing that women have to fight bullshit 2-minute rounds, I'm very well leaning towards Claressa winning by a very wide unanimous decision victory. And I just personally think that's just how the fight will go down. I just don't see Clarissa really losing to Savannah in a boxing match. I just think based off of what I'm seeing, Savannah shows a lot more holes in her game than Clarissa does. And I just think that's just how the fight will go down, because people will say, Savannah will, she'll hurt Clarissa more, and Clarissa will be, let the lesser, powered fighter, blah, blah, blah. And I just find it to be really weird of like why people pick, against, Clarissa, because it's like, you know, obviously when Clarissa fought, Hannah Gabriel, a lot of people were picking Hannah Gabriel for the right reasons, but Clarissa was still a mid-level to not so high underdog in that fight, but she managed to get the job done to beat Hannah, but Hannah was lucky enough to drop her when Clarissa left her chin wide open. But other than that, Clarissa did her thing. But it's like, basically the double standard that I'm giving out is that whenever it's a white fighter where especially they're on the hope list to face a fighter on the coincidental like Clarissa. Clarissa is always to be hated for the wrong reasons, where people think that she's not good at boxing anymore because she's about to face a puncher that doesn't have that much boxing IQ with her level of talent, like Savannah. But when she fights a woman like a boxer puncher like Hannah Gabriel, people will give Clarissa the credit for defeating Hannah, but Hannah, she won't get credit for her skills and abilities of what she did to previous opponents leading up to Clarissa, because Clarissa fought a older version of her in which Hannah was able to give her, one of her toughest battles in her entire career, in which Hannah said it herself that Clarissa was, one of like her toughest fights, hands down. But it's like Clarissa even said it herself that Hannah, she's a beast, and she got, a lot of talents and skills in what she did. So those fights that Clarissa was in her career, especially at a younger stage, she grew so well in just developing fight after fight, and especially in world title fights where she's able to do what she wanted to do in those fights. But on top of that, she had limited experience in the professional game to be successful, because she obviously had all that amateur experience. So obviously people weren't so sure if her style was was ever going to convert well in the pros, but she was able to adjust so well that she just started blossoming very, very fast in the professional ranks. So that's a S plus performance by Clarissa's career, versus with Savannah, her career was never tested at all. Her only toughest fight that I would ever say where, it kind of looked like she was about to be stopped. I probably say that African chick, Lolita Musea, but she then later got pushed back by Savannah's quote unquote punching power, which I thought she was, belligerently fighting dirty in that fight for her to, get the knockout. But, it was a very, dirty, corrupt knockout. It wasn't like a knockout where she was like really like putting any effort into those punches. She was just hurting, Musea with some very dirty punches. And, honestly, like, I don't give Savannah any credit for, with her knockout victories. I think every single knockout that she's had is very suspect at this point, and there's nothing that I could really give her credit for other than just like, hey, if you beat Clarissa fair and square, then all power to you. But if I see any cheating whatsoever, and I will call, I will be the first one to, to call it out, then don't be surprised, man, because I will be hunting, everybody down. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to be leading my own campaigns to, promote justice, on this channel. And I'm not going to be to be the one blind, looking, from the outside, looking in. So that's pretty much it with that. I got Clarissa Shields either stopping Savannah late, or she will get the decision, hopefully, if the judges, don't rob her. And, yeah, that's pretty much it with my pick. let's move forward with the last two fights or the last three fights. We got Caleb Plant versus Anthony Durrell. Um, Actually, yeah. Before I get to that, let me do Devin Haney because Devin Haney is actually the more interesting fight card. Um, but Devin Haney versus Kambosos too. Devin Haney, I definitely favor him. I think he's going to stop Georgie late. I think he's going to just beat him up really bad, and George will either submit to Devin's pressure and his, great fighting style that he can't figure out. And I think it's just going to be an absolute beatdown. I do believe that Devin just has the more he has the more deadlier fighting style that makes him out to be a very difficult style matchup for anyone. But Devin, he's a monster, man. I don't see anything different. George is just not that type of guy where he's going to make any adjustments within 4 months, and I just think that's how it's really going to go down. I very well could be wrong. And I just think based off of what I'm seeing, it's definitely going to be that type of fight where Devin is just going to shine and he's just going to do what he needs to do to be successful. So I got Devin either stopping George Lee or it's just going to go to a very wide decision. But also there's some other good fights here on the card. And I would like to give a huge big shout out to Miss Sugar Neeks, Trineka Johnson. Please go check her out. She's a 122-pound IBF female super bantamweight champion. Just wanted to give my respects to her. She's a very, very good fighter. She'll be going up against the veteran level Susie Ramadan. She's obviously not the greatest fighter out there, but she's had some very good wars. She's like a 43-year-old lady. I guess this is a title defense that she's making, so definitely long overdue. She's been out of the ring since April, so can't wait to see Miss Queen Johnson in the ring. Please go check her out. She's going to be fighting on the Devin Haney card, and hopefully I can see her fight if there's ever video coverage of it. But either way, I just figured that I give a quick little shout out, especially on the channel. But yeah, I got Devin just washing George, and I don't see this fight really going the distance if Devin really presses presses on George enough to get the victory. But yeah, let's move forward with the next card or the final card with Deontay Wilder and Robert Helenius. Obviously we got Deontay Wilder, the main event, but I'm going to talk about the co-main event with Caleb Sweet Hands Plant versus Mr. Anthony the Dog Durrell. This is a very, very good fight. And also, don't forget, we got the Cuban brother, Mr. Giovanni Brunzone, against Mr. James Evans. That was a black dude that had that draw with he had that draw with Steven Torres. Oh, and don't forget, this is such a flame effing matchup. I cannot effing wait. Wow, yo. PBC is putting up they're putting up the smoke. Wow, they are putting up the smoke. Yo, Jezreel Corrales, he was supposed to be in the ring with Michelle Rivera. Oh my God, man. Man, I really wish, dude, bro, you guys are missing out on boxing, but honestly, peep this. Kelvin King, for those of you that don't know, he's a decent fighter. He's 7-0 right now, but he was supposed to face Keyshawn Williams. That was a black dude that lost to Kenneth Sims Jr., right? But on top of that, you had Subriel Matias versus Jeremiah Ponce. That was obviously going to be on the main portion of that card. And then you were also going to have Michelle Rivera and Jezreel Corrales fight each other. Bruh. Jezreel Corrales and Michelle Lazarza. Yo, Lazarza Ali. Yo, baby Trinidad Ali. Whew. Oh my god, dude. This card would have been absolutely tremendously scary. And then obviously you got Michael Coughley. He's going up against Hovhannissian Gergen. He's like a 24-year-old Armenian. What? I don't know, but I'm definitely gonna take a look at him because he don't look like he's 24 years old. But if he's some 24-year-old Armenian guy, then oh no, they're definitely gonna line up Michael Coffey to get stopped, and that's probably what's gonna end up happening. Oh, actually, oh no, guys, Michel Rivera, he's actually on the card as well. I'm looking at it right now. He will be going up against former common opponent of Frank Martin, Jerry Perez, which to me that's a very very good ass fight. You know, if you guys don't know who Jerry Perez is, he actually came back with a great 5th round KO against Eric Lanzas Jr., in which he wasn't, that, big of a fighter himself, but Eric Lanzas, he's a good fighter. He obviously had his big opportunity against Jerry Perez, in which Perez, he's a good fighter himself, but he was he was that Mexican looking guy that got beat up by Frank Martin. That was back in 2021 on April 20th. But obviously after that fight, he basically just took a whole year off, which I don't know why he did that. That, like, to me, that's pretty stupid if you ask me. Like, I don't know why people try to, like, hold their careers off after they get stopped. Like, obviously there's more reasons to it, maybe due to managerial issues or just not getting a fight, because after you get stopped, fighters obviously want to fight you, or your team wants you to take time off. But I just don't see that to be like a really smart, decision, because to me, like, if you get stopped, you should obviously take time off. I would take like a good, like, solid, like 3 to 4 months off, and then get back into training, and then get back into like a fight, but do it with like a low level opponent, and then, slowly go back up to a high level opponent. So I think that just makes all the better sense of making, this fight a lot more interesting. But actually, no, I'm sorry, but basically, I think that's like the better way of like actually setting up fights for a fighter that comes off of like a knockout loss. But everybody is different, obviously. But yeah, Michel Rivera will be facing up against Jerry Perez. I'm definitely looking forward for this fight because Jerry Perez, he can hit, but the problem with him is that he's very flat-footed when you get him tired. But on top of that, with Michel Rivera, he tends to, he tends to lose a little bit of his step when he gets tired too. So I think Ali and I think Rivera, he's gonna have like a tough outing with this Jerry Perez guy. But I'm definitely favoring Michel Rivera to stop him. But Giovanni Brunzone against James Evans, definitely watch this fight. This is a very very good fight. Him and Steven Torres is a very very good matchup that needs to happen in a rematch. But obviously with Steven Torres, he should have definitely ran that shit back as soon as possible. But with him and Giovanni Brunzone, I won't be surprised if Brunzone beats him, because Brunzone, he's a very, very difficult, opponent. He's a tough Cuban fighter, and he has a lot of power in those shots, and he's a deadly-ass southpaw, if I'm not mistaken. So, there's just so much progression out of him where, these Cubans are definitely starting to make their name, and I'm definitely hoping to see Brunzone back in the ring, because this man, he's a problem. For those of you that don't know who he is, he fought that Lanier Pero guy, who's also undefeated as well. Well, he's undefeated now, but he's a 29-year-old Cuban southpaw, absolute freakish monster. He's 6'4.5" with a 79-inch arm reach out of Camagüey, Cuba. training out of Miami, Florida. His promoter is Shane Shapiro. Crazy, crazy good skills. Like literally insane good skills. And same thing with Giovanni, Brunzone. They basically have the same promoter, with Shane Shapiro. He trains out of Vegas and he's out of Holguin, Cuba. But yeah, he's 6'4" with the 80-inch arm reach. He's insane. He has great skills, and him facing up against James Evans is literally the perfect style matchup. He's 6'5". I want to say that arm reach has to be like 80 to 85 inch, but when you got long ass arms like that, and you definitely come from at the school of Toledo, Ohio boxing, in which that's where he's from. He obviously had that draw with Steven Torres, in which some people may say he won, or others can say that he lost. But that's a very, very good matchup if I'm James Evans to take this fight now, because Brunzone, he's definitely going to be steamrolling a lot of guys in the heavyweight division. And I won't be surprised if Evans, if he's actually met with a very, very tough matchup in front of him. But that's going to be a very interesting, preliminary bout, and I'm really definitely I'm definitely going to have like my eyes glued into that fight. Let's also talk about the other fights that are on the card. Oh, Trevon Marshall, 6-0. I think he has 4 or 5 knockouts, but he'll be going up against Angel Ruiz. That's a very, very tough opponent for those of you that don't know who he is. He's a 25-year-old fighter, but if you guys don't know who he is, he's a decent fighter. But if I'm not mistaken, he could have been the guy that fought Suleiman Sissoko. But if that's not the guy that I'm thinking about, then forget about it. But he obviously lost to Giovanni. He lost to Giovanni Santillan. Oh, actually, no. I actually know who this guy is. He's a very, very tough Mexican fighter. I know that. But let me take a look at this. Angel Ruiz Boxing. Angel Ruiz Boxing. Yeah, this is like the same guy that I'm thinking about. This guy, he's an absolute monster, man. He's a very tough, come forward Mexican type of fighter. And he's just, dude, he's an absolute dog when he fights on the inside. Really, really good with his feet, to transition on the inside. The biggest issue with him is that whenever he does get hurt, he doesn't know how to like put his feet down at the proper position to be successful. But knowing that he's more, he's more mature with his footwork, and I think he just knows where to put himself in proper position to land the big shots. I think Trevon Marshall will be that perfect opponent for him. Knowing that Trevon Marshall, he knows how to box, but on top of that, he's an absolute monster with positioning his feet to make the fight a lot more controllable in his favor. And I think with this fight, Trevon Marshall is just that type of guy where there's a lot of questions that need to be answered of how he's coming with all these knockouts, because he has literally 5 knockouts out of all 6 of his fights, obviously up against, opponents that are not good yet. But now that PBC decided to give him this Angel Ruiz guy who has over 18 plus fights, this is a perfect example of what Keyshawn Davis should be doing. And I'm not to say that he's like Keyshawn Davis, but the fact that he wants to chase for a title, I'm all for it. And this is the perfect step to put yourself in position to get that title. So either way, my whole take on this is just like, this is a very, very good fight. And for those of you that don't know Trevon Marshall, he's been fighting on all PBC fight cards. He's been fighting at the Armory. He fought on PBC Christmas Fight Night. That was back in December 25th of 2021. Absolute monster. He just destroyed his opponent. Like, dude, honestly, like he's giving me some some young Antonio Tarver vibes, but he's giving me some young who's that one fighter that he was always quiet, but he was always dominating people. Like, he's like a Derek Gainer with a Antonio Tarver type of fighter. If you guys know what I'm saying, like he has like the Kevin Kelly, Derek Gainer build, but he has the shard of a Antonio Tarver type fighter because he just knows how to be there at the right place at the right time in a fight, and he's so intelligent in the ring. So that's pretty much what I have to say about that. Let's talk about the co-main event and the main event with Deontay Wilder and Helenius. But before I get to that, I'm going to give credit where credit is due with Caleb Plant and Anthony Dirrell, the dog. I truly favor Caleb Plant to beat Anthony Dirrell. I don't think this fight will be as competitive as people make it out to be, but I think it'll be a very, very fun fight to see where Caleb Plant's mindset is at. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see who ends up winning, this fight. The only biggest issue that I have is why fight Dirrell towards the end of his career. I think the biggest takeaway from this fight is that Caleb Plant, he obviously deserves bigger names on his resume, but I think that knowing after he lost to Canelo and leading up to such a long layoff, in which I don't blame him because it's like Caleb Plant, he had a lot to think about. But on top of that, Caleb, he is a very good fighter. I just think that when you look at, where, he needs to be in his career, I think this type of fight isn't really needed, but I understand why he took this route. Hold on, give me 1 second. Alright, so back to what I was saying. Caleb Plant does not need this type of opponent in his career, but I understand why it's somewhat necessary to have an opponent like Dirrell, because PBC, obviously knows that Dirrell, he's trying to cash out as much as possible. But it's like, would you rather set him up with some other old fighter that no one's going to care to see him in? But on top of that, what makes Dirrell marketable? Putting him in there with somebody that's not worth seeing, in the super middleweight division. Because, honestly, like, a fight between, like, him and Caleb Truax probably would have been, like, a better matchup. But knowing that Dirrell, he wants to face any high-level opposition, I think Caleb Plant was the perfect, opponent for it. But I think this fight should have been made a lot more sooner in Dirrell's prime versus, like, at this point of his career, it's like he wasn't really doing anything, leading up to this point. And I mean, honestly, I think the biggest issue is just that Anthony Dirrell, he hasn't put himself in any ceiling of deserving a big fight, because obviously he knocked out Marcos Hernandez, who is a good fighter himself. But the problem that I have with Marcos Hernandez is just that when you look at honestly, when you look at what he's been doing ever since that win, I mean, I kind of feel like Anthony Dirrell, to me, he's been ducking the division, if you really think about it, because why would you go from Marcos Hernandez to a Caleb Plant fight, in which I think the best fight for Anthony Dirrell would have been a Danny Jacobs fight, because I think Danny Jacobs would have made the better transition back into the mix, because if you beat Danny Jacobs, at least you have a better, name on your resume. But on top of that, you're beating like a top 10 guy, in which Caleb, he is a top 10 guy himself, and right at the very bottom of the top 10, you have Edgar Berlanga, and then you have other fighters as well. So I think that the best fight for a Anthony Durrell would have been a David Morrell. Because if you really think about it, David Morrell wants all the big fish, but it's like, we just don't know where, he's gonna be. There's rumors to say that he's fighting this guy, Eidos Yerbosily Newly, in which I think this is a good fight. I think facing a Kazakh fighter that obviously defeated your recent, opposition, Lennox Allen, in which he got stopped, sadly. I don't know how he lost to a guy like him, but that's very interesting. But yeah, I mean, this is a very good fight. Definitely, yeah, looking forward to making a breakdown on David Morrell's career because David Morrell, he's at the very, very top right now. 24 years old, absolute monster out of Cuba. He definitely deserves to be up there with all the mix, well, with all the high level fighters, in the mix at 168. But yeah, I think this is a good matchup for Caleb Plant for him to get back into the mix. But the problem is that I think a better fight with a guy like Danny Jacobs or like a Jesse Hart or any of those guys would have made a better sell. But shit, I honestly wouldn't mind like a Edgar Berlanga fight because Edgar Berlanga, he was talking all that shit towards Caleb Plant to say like, oh well, like, I would knock you out, Caleb, blah blah blah. Like, why couldn't a offer been sent out to Edgar Berlanga? Because at least with Edgar Berlanga, even if he loses to Caleb Plant, there's nothing to really be mad about because Berlanga, he's young. But on top of that, to have it in Brooklyn, to have it in New York City, imagine that sell. Like a Caleb Plant versus a Edgar Berlanga, in which Berlanga, he's going to come in super duper hungry in that fight. But I'm just saying, like, if you want to make like a big splash in your career, beat up on a younger guy because that at least puts your career at a better spot versus facing a much older version of Anthony Durrell. That doesn't really put you at the high, like, at the high pedestal. So I'm just saying, like, as a fan for Caleb Plant, because I like Caleb Plant a lot, I think personally, if you fought Berlanga on this particular fight date, there would be way, way, way better opportunities coming his way. Because obviously Berlanga, he's not really marketable yet at super middleweight because he obviously needs like a veteran level fight. But it's like, imagine imagine fighting Berlanga in Brooklyn and you beat him. Obviously, that doesn't do anything for for your career. Neither does Anthony Durrell. To which obviously this is like a title eliminator fight, but still, like, I don't think anything would change. If the WBC or whatever sanctioned body could have done in their power to have Edgar Berlanga fight Caleb Plant, because minus from what Edgar Berlanga did back in June 11th, where he bit Alexis Angulo, to which that was very stupid of him, in which I was there at that fight. I think Berlanga versus Caleb Plant should have been let the fight to make, especially for a title eliminator. But I guess we'll find out what happens with Edgar Berlanga heading into the future. It's going to be very interesting to see what he does with his next choice of opponents. But yeah, Caleb Plant has a very tough task in front of him, but I think he's going to make easy work of it against the guy and Anthony, the dog Durrell. The matchup, I would say, however, I think Durrell, he does not poise, like people try to say his power is like all this and that, but I don't see it to be like that. I see his power to be like very, above average. I've never really thought of his power to be like super duper good. But when you look at like the skill sets of what either guy does, I think Darrell shows a lot more holes in his game, and he's not like the same guy no more. If he was like 5, 6 years younger, I think Darrell would have a much higher probability of probably just beating Caleb to a decision. But like, I don't even think that's even a good, bold prediction that you could even say right there, because Darrell, he was never that good of a boxer. He was more of like a puncher, because he always came in to like try to stop somebody. But he has good, decent boxing skills. It's just like I've never seen his boxing skills on high display, where whenever he does box, he has a good jab, but whenever his jab does not save him in a fight, that's where he ends up getting stopped. Where he got stopped by David Benavidez, but on top of that, when he was getting beat up on by Avni Yildirim, where he basically ended up having a massive cut, in which I personally thought Avni Yildirim arguably won that fight off of that cut, because that cut really showed he doesn't take good shots well. In which some people will say like Avni Yildirim, he's not a good fighter. In which, granted, I will give the benefit of the doubt, because Avni Yildirim, he was never that good of a fighter. But it's not like Yildirim is super duper trash. It's just like, he hasn't really been put in any proper position to put himself in any good position. And obviously, when you look at his recent resume, he obviously beat like he beat an opponent that stopped him in 9 rounds. But on top of that, he's not doing anything successful in his career. But it's like, look at the resume. He obviously got set up to go up against Canelo Alvarez, in which that was his little sparring partner. And obviously, Canelo, I thought, that was like a, politically match-made fight. But Anthony Dirrell, that was a fight where he looked completely different in that fight. And same thing in the Jack Cullen fight. Jack Cullen, he started fighting a lot better, in the Jack Cullen fight. But ever since that fight, he was on like a massive three fight win streak, up against lower level opposition, obviously. But it just clearly shows like Avni Yildirim, this was a low level fighter that was beating up on Anthony Dirrell. And honestly, Anthony Dirrell, he should have lost that fight. You can make a case to say that, he should have lost that, Avni Yildirim fight, because he didn't really deserve that title for the WBC vacancy, because his only real champion that he really ever fought was up against that weird guy Sajid whatever, Psycho Bika. It's this dude right here. He was like a somewhat like a tough African dude, but yeah, he definitely went tooth and nail with the African that he then later beat in a unanimous decision. But then you then later lost it to Badou Jack. So honestly, like I don't see Anthony Dirrell to be a legitimate champion, because if you lose your belt to somebody that you should have beat, like a Badou Jack, especially in 2015, where he was at he was at the prime of his quote unquote career, then I think a fight between him and Caleb Plant would have been a lot more different if he was able to actually be more successful in his career. And which obviously some people would say in the Badou Jack fight he could have won that fight, but I've watched that fight several times, and I actually thought he definitely lost that fight. But I don't know, I think like a rematch should have been made between him and Badou Jack, because that fight definitely deserved a rematch. For the fight of that magnitude, because if he had beat Badojak, he would have been set up to fight, who's that other guy? He would have been set to fight James DeGale, in which Caleb Truax had defeated in the past. But when James DeGale, when he beat him, that was a very, very interesting win that Caleb Truax had. But it's just weird how he lost to Anthony Dirrell, and then he just kind of came out on top, beating up on guys that people never heard of, but he was able to get the job done, and boom, he was able to become a 2-time super middleweight champion, of the world, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, man, Oh wait, actually no. Let me take a look at that. Because I'm almost positive that he only won the belt one time through the IBF. But let me take a look at that. Oh, and actually, with the Anthony Dirrell loss, actually, no. I actually remember. Yeah, Caleb Truax actually lost by getting stopped by Anthony Dirrell. But I gotta go back and look at, take a look at that fight. Oh, he actually fought Jermaine Taylor too. Wow, that's actually very interesting. Yo, he's fought some pretty good ass names. Yo, I gotta give it to him, man. I gotta give it to him. But yeah, he definitely became a champion towards the end of his career. But yeah, that was a very interesting story that Caleb Truax had in his career, because he's definitely a very, very good fighter. Yeah, man, he definitely fought some good ass names. He fought Jaron Ennis's brother, Derek. Yeah, this is a good victory. Even though Caleb Truax is not the greatest fighter out there, but he's never really fought that many world champions compared to Caleb. And I mean, Anthony Dirrell, I don't know, the trash talking was good, but the factual claims that he tried to bring it up to say, how many champions has Caleb Plant fought? Plant has fought at least better opposition leading up to Dirrell, and Dirrell has never kept his title officially leading up to winning a championship. So I will say, based off of what the level of success, Caleb Plant has done more to be successful in this fight, potentially against Anthony Dirrell. But obviously, besides from the Canelo Alvarez victory, yeah, you did beat Caleb Truax. A Caleb Truax in which he could have stopped, but he broke his hand in that fight. Jose Uzcategui, a very, very good fighter. He beat Porky Medina, a very good fighter, in which Anthony Dirrell, you never beat Porky Medina, if I'm not mistaken. If anything, I actually thought he avoided Porky Medina, but still, Porky, he's been in there with some really tough loaded, competition. So it's not like Porky is just this really garbage fighter. Bro, he fought Zerto, dude, take a look at this crazy stacked, resume he had, man. Very, very good fighter, but he just hasn't been able to put himself in there in proper position, because I think especially at the super middleweight division, it's very hard to try to get fights with people that don't want to fight you. But when you look at guys like Dirrell, he's had some good wars, but the majority of his fights were just never, they were never at the level to say okay, he's really, really good, or he's very, very bad. But I think with the progression with Anthony Dirrell versus Plant, I think Plant's gonna come out with the victory, because he's shown enough separation in his fights where obviously the matchmaking has been a little bit weird of why the PBC decided to just give him fights where no one didn't want to see these fights be made. Obviously, like, like the fights between him and David Benavidez, would have been good. I think him and Darrell should have been made like years ago. I think, if this is Anthony Darrell like 5, 6 years, primed into the past, I think this would have, like, this fight would have made a lot better sense to make this fight. But knowing that Darrell never went after Caleb Plant to take him out of the picture, then I think that Darrell, he made a really poor mistake by having Caleb Plant just, basically develop his skill set to the point where he has like a better trainer now, and he now has more skills in his tool bag to become a bigger threat come fight night. So that's pretty much what I have to say about that. But I just find it very interesting that Anthony Darrell really has the crazy almighty, like, how should I say, he has like the crazy almighty, thought to think like Caleb Plant ain't shit, and he can't, he can't beat Anthony Darrell. But I think Plant's gonna get the job done. I don't think the knockout loss really stunned him. If anything, I think Caleb's gonna come out a lot more different in this ring return against Anthony Darrell. But yeah, that's pretty much how I see it with that. Yeah, let's talk about the other fight. Last but not least, with Deontay Wilder. We obviously got, the man himself, Mr. Bronze Bomber, Wilder, out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And yeah, definitely looking forward to it, man. This is a very good fight. I think this is a very dangerous fight for Wilder, but I think Wilder's gonna get the job done, man. I don't think Robert Helenius is as good as people try to make him out to be. I think Robert, he's gonna be in for a very, very tough fight, and I think Robert, he understands where the odds lie, and I very well could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I think Robert has shown a lot more flaws in his game than Wilder has, and regardless of what people try to make, Helenius out to be, I just don't see the level of separation that Wilder is trying to imply to say that, Robert Helenius is this big hyperactive monster. But I don't really see Helenius really doing what I think he's gonna do to Wilder. Can he actually hurt Wilder? Of course, but I don't think his heavyweight power punches is like really that good. I think he's very hittable. He's very slow when he throws punches, very similar to Joe Joyce. Obviously, he knows how to throw punches well when he's in pressure with you, but I just think Helenius, he can't be perfect for 12 rounds with Wilder, and I think Wilder's going to come out with something that we haven't seen before, and this is a brand new style that we have definitely seen from Deontay Wilder's growth with Malik Scott, and there's just so much talent that you can see out of Wilder, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. This is a very, very good card. Obviously, don't forget Vito Manecki. He's going up against Limberth Ponce. Oh yeah, he's that guy that fought Joey Spencer. Yeah, I can't wait for that fight. But yeah, don't forget about Gary Antonio Russell versus Emmanuel Rodriguez. That's going to be a crazy good fight. But yeah, man, I think this card is so lit. Bro, Jeremy Adorno against Michael Angeletti. That's going to be a crazy good-ass fight. I cannot wait for that fight. That fight is going to be flaming hot. But dang. Dude, this fight is just crazy good. Look at the opposition. You got Keyshawn Williams against Julio Rosa, you know, that Puerto Rican dude that fought Omar Rosario. Dude, like, this card is just legit insanely good. I cannot wait for this card. But yeah, moving forward with the main event. Yeah, I think Deontay Wilder is going to smack Helenius when he finds his right opportunity to land the right hand. And it's just good night. I think Wilder, he has power. And his power is very, very deadly. But I think with Robert's chance to actually win, his only chance would ever be hurting Wilder when he sees the opportunity. But I don't think it's gonna end up being like a Fury saga. I think Wilder's punch resistance will be fine, and knowing that he's healed up extensively well, I guess we're just gonna have to find out where his body and his his recovery of taking a good shot will be, because obviously I am personally myself a little bit worried about like the dent in a skull, but knowing that usually your cranium is probably one of like, the most fastest healing organs or fastest healing parts of your human body, to repair a quote unquote dented skull. I think it makes all the perfect sense in the world of why Wilder took he took a whole year off in, properly recovering in that process, to be put in that motion, to not think about boxing and think more about just relaxing the mind and being more, physically rejuvenated. So I think that makes all the betterment of what Wilder needed to recover. And I think this is a very, very good, very, very good, recovery session for Wilder. And I mean, if Wilder looks really bad and he's not like the same guy anymore, and he can't take, as much good shots as he once did, because obviously, quote unquote, Tyson Fury, cheating drama saga, then I think, I think personally, it should be time for Wilder to hang it up. That's just how I feel. I didn't originally want Wilder to come back because I was just so worried about, how will Deontay Wilder respond to heavyweight punches if he were to return. But knowing that this is a Robert Helenius that we're talking about, a guy that came off of 2 back-to-back knockout victories, I just don't know. I think based off of what I'm seeing in my own eyes, I think Wilder will be successful. But if Robert comes out blazing hot and I'm looking at something that I shouldn't be seeing, where Wilder he could potentially lose, that I would be I would be very, very worried about him. Not only of him losing, but just Wilder potentially, I don't know, man. I don't want to sound dark and cold in this video, but if Wilder looks like he's he's about to die for whatever reason, where his body does not respond well and he looks to be in traumatic, stress of, whatever portion of that fight may go, then, I don't want to see Wilder take any more damage. And I'm saying that not only from like a true, loving fans perspective, but just coming out of like hard brotherly love, I respect Deontay Wilder like he's my own relative, and if that's my own relative in the ring fighting, where I know he or she got cheated dirty, in the game, and they're gonna go through a very, dreadful moment of potentially risking their life for the sake of, whatever, factors that may happen, then I personally don't want to see it, because I would do anything in my own power to look out for my relatives, if they were to be cheated dirty, in a violent sport like boxing. But definitely I would favor Wilder destroying Robert if this was a Deontay Wilder that was never cheated at all, and all he had was just like the sheer raw power on top of his age kicking in. But Wilder would still be a big ass threat with the Malik Scott training if he was like heavily trained a lot earlier in his career. And it's not like Wilder and Malik Scott just barely know each other. No, like they've been knowing each other for a long, long, long time. So the progression of Deontay Wilder is way better than for what people try to make it out to be. So that's pretty much it with what I have to say about that. But final case in point of this fight, I think Wilder's progression in this fight will be determined of how much he really wants to be successful. And I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what Wilder can do. Because if this is a new and improved Wilder, where we could easily see him bring this style for the next, 2 to 3 years that Wilder says he's going to be around for left, then I think Wilder's going all the way to become undisputed. And I would love to see Wilder, undisputed, especially in this time frame. If he could ever get the opportunity to beat up Tyson Fury, in a fourth fight, I think it's very doable, and I think that would end, the historic chapter of Deontay Wilder's life. But if not, I think it's time for Wilder to get his roses now while he's still, alive, and I think undisputed would be very, very popular with Wilder in the mix. But I'm definitely looking forward to see what Wilder will do. But that's pretty much it. Sorry for such a long video. I had so much to say. And I hope you guys enjoyed, man. More big content coming on the way. And appreciate you guys for, watching the videos, and more big content coming soon. So appreciate you guys. Thank you. Salute to the mighty LDBC, and I'm out. Bye.